Let me take you on a journey, a time-traveling escapade, if you will. Close your eyes and imagine. A time long, long before the bustling streets of modern-day London. Before skyscrapers kissed the sky and the tube rumbled below. Picture a time when the mightiest empire of all, the Romans, gazed westward and set their hungry eyes on the misty isles of Britain. The Roman Empire. I bet you've heard stories of their legions, their emperors, their gladiators. They had this unyielding might and insatiable ambition. They had spread their reach from the scorching deserts of Africa to the cold forests of Germany. Conquering? It was practically their hobby. But now picture this. Britain, an island on the edge of their known world. Wild, mysterious, enigmatic. For the Romans, this was uncharted territory. A challenge? Absolutely. An adventure? Without a doubt. And oh, the Britons. Let's not forget about them. The land was scattered with mighty hill forts and its people. They had this air of raw freedom around them. With druids leading ceremonies under ancient oaks, the Britons' way of life was, let's just say, a tad bit different from the wine-sipping, toga-wearing Mediterranean sophistication of the Romans. Now, here's the million denarii question. Why? Why did the Romans, with all their power and vast territories, even want this rainy island? What pulled them towards Britain? You might think, oh, it was the Romans. Expanding was just what they did. But no, my friends. The allure of Britain was more than just another feather in their imperial cap. Britain promised wealth, precious metals, abundant crops, and yes, the prestige of conquering the unconquered. So, was it merely about expanding their vast empire? Not really. The game was more complex. It was about resources, riches, and of course, the irresistible allure of a new challenge. Strap in, because this is the tale of Roman Britain, a story of ambition, resilience, cultures clashing, and the eventual melding of two worlds. And as our story unfolds, you'll discover how an empire's ambition met the fierce spirit of an island, and how their intertwined fates shaped history. The first steps, challenges, and adapting to a new land. Okay, where were we? Ah yes, the Romans and their eye on Britain. Now, it wasn't like they just sailed over and said, "Hey, we're your new rulers. Hope that's cool." Nope, far from it. First came Julius Caesar, the mighty general with laurels in his hair and dreams of conquest in his eyes. He tried not once, but twice, to get a Roman foothold on British soil. But let me tell you, the Britons weren't having it. Caesar's grand ambition, it met the stubborn resistance of the islanders. It's like trying to set up a picnic in the middle of a storm. The idea was good, but the timing? Maybe not so much. It wasn't until almost a century later that a determined Emperor Claudius thought, you know what? Third time's the charm. With elephants, legions, and a drive to impress Rome, Claudius kick-started what Caesar could only dream of, the Roman conquest of Britain. Now, once they had their foot in the door, the Romans, being Romans, began giving Britain a bit of a Mediterranean makeover. They laid down intricate mosaic floors in grand villas, built perfectly straight roads. I mean, have you seen Roman roads? They're like the autobahns of the ancient world, and introduced a pantheon of new gods for the Britons to worship. A touch of Rome in the wilds of Britain, if you will. But here's where things get spicy. Not all Britons fancied these changes. Some enjoyed their new Roman bathhouses and amphitheaters, sure, but others, not so much. Enter Boudica, a fierce warrior queen with fiery red hair and a thirst for vengeance. She wasn't about to let the Romans waltz in and change the channel without a fight. When they wronged her, she rallied her people and gave the Romans a nightmare they wouldn't forget in a hurry. Let's just say she almost made the Romans regret their little British adventure. Oh, speaking of making a statement, ever traveled to the northern parts of England and seen a massive stone wall? That's Hadrian's Wall for you. Emperor Hadrian thought, well, if we can't conquer the whole island, Let's at least keep the barbarians out. A line in the sand? More like a mammoth stone barrier. The Romans and the Britons, two worlds colliding, with each trying to leave its mark. And as these tales show, it was a dance of power, resistance, and adaptation. Now picture this. The once misty Isles of Britain, which had stood resistant to Roman ambition, gradually began to transform. You could say it was a golden era, a time when Roman Britain truly flourished. At its zenith, the island didn't resemble that wild frontier the Romans had first set foot on. Town centers thrummed with life. The chatter of traders in bustling markets, the tantalizing aroma of Roman delicacies, the sounds of theatrical performances echoing from amphitheaters, and the relaxed vibes from bathhouses. Just think about it. Where once stood hill forts and druid circles, now stood magnificent temples and grand villas. But it wasn't just about the architecture or the luxuries. The Romans brought with them systems, law, governance, and can you believe it, central heating. Those cold British winters, well, they were no match for the Roman hypercore system. It's like the ancient version of underfloor heating. Pretty fancy, right? Life under Roman rule, it had its perks. There was order, there was culture, and there was prosperity. For a moment, it seemed as if this Roman Britain blend was the perfect concoction. But here's a little history lesson for you. No matter how grand, no matter how powerful, empires have their sunset days. They rise, they peak, and then they wane. And the Roman Empire, vast and mighty as it was, wasn't exempt from this rule. Cracks began to emerge. Whispers of dissent grew louder, and the very foundations that held Roman Britain together started to tremble. Could it be that the days of Roman Britain were numbered? Remember those cracks I mentioned? Let's zoom in a bit. The grandeur of Roman Britain wasn't just under threat from inside. External forces were at play too. You see, the Roman Empire was a colossal entity and managing such a vast realm. Well, it wasn't a walk in the park. From barbarian invasions at the borders to internal politics muddying the waters, the empire found itself in a bit of a pinch. Economically, things weren't looking all rosy either. With trade routes getting disrupted and resources dwindling, maintaining the same opulence and order became challenging. And what about our dear Britons? While some had fully embraced the Roman way of life, others started to feel a pull, a call back to their ancient traditions. You could say they were getting a bit homesick for their own culture. Those grand Roman-style villas, once the epitome of luxury, now stood silent in many parts of Britain. Grass grew through the once bustling marketplaces, and vines claimed the once pristine walls. Perhaps the most telling sign of the times, the Roman legions. Ah, those legions, the very symbol of Roman might and order in Britain. They began to pack their bags. As tensions flared up elsewhere in the empire, particularly in Rome itself, the legions were called back, leaving a void in their wake. You know, it's funny how things come full circle. The legions, once the invaders and then protectors, now left the land they'd called home for centuries. With them gone, it was as if the protective shield around Roman Britain started to wither away. The stage was set. The curtains were drawing close on Roman Britain and what lay ahead. Well, let's just say it was a mix of uncertainty and the promise of a new beginning. As the sands of time flowed, the pages turned to the 5th century. The once mighty Roman presence in Britain, with its legions, governors, and grand infrastructure, was now more a whisper of the past than the roar it once was. But endings, as they say, are also new beginnings. The Roman rule might have dimmed, but the shimmer? Oh, that remained. The tales of their grandeur became legends, but the tangible marks they left, those are still with us. Ever been to Britain and walked on an ancient straight-as-an-arrow road? Or marveled at the ruins of a bathhouse where once Romans lounged and discussed politics? That's not just stone and mortar. That's history. That's legacy. The Britons, resilient as ever, adapted. They saw empires come and go, and while the Romans left, the pulse of the land never skipped a beat. New powers rose, new tales were woven, but in the fabric of Britain, the threads of the Roman past are still interwoven. So the next time you find yourself in Britain, maybe in a museum staring at an intricately designed Roman mosaic or wandering through the remnants of a Roman fort, take a moment. Close your eyes and travel back in time. Remember the mighty empire that once touched these shores, the drama of their rise and fall, and the eternal spirit of the land they fondly called Britannia. It's a tale worth telling, a history worth cherishing, and a legacy that, much like the Roman roads, will lead us through time. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time, exploring the rise and fall of Roman Britain. It's fascinating, isn't it? How echoes of the past still resonate in the present. If you enjoyed this story and want to dive deeper into more historical tales, make sure to hit that like button and, of course, subscribe to the channel. And hey, share this with someone who you think would love a trip back to the Roman era. Got any suggestions or historical periods you're curious about? Drop a comment below. I love hearing from you, and who knows, your idea might just be the next story we explore together.